Hello everyone, Pithy here, and I'm back with another episode of Pithy's Budget Brews. Now today I'll be talking about Lena, Selfless Champion. And what Lena does is, whenever she enters the battlefield, she creates a 1/1 white soldier creature token for each non-token creature you control. And then she also has the ability to sacrifice herself to basically give all of the creatures with power less than her indestructible. So basically she just protects all of your quote weaker creatures than her. So she basically sacrifices herself so the others can live, which is something that's very cool. She is 6 mana, but for what she does a lot. You know, for 6 mana, she gives you potentially a huge number of creatures, and also protects your other creatures as well. She also does. She's only a 3/3, so like that's kind of a problem. So, she's kind of small, so you kind of have to build your deck in more of like a small creature type deck, like you would build in the Lesha deck. But instead of playing as much utility, what you would do is you would just play essentially a good stuff go wide aggro deck, which is what I did with Lena. So basically our aggro package to make a huge number of tokens. Now she does say for each non-token creature, but tokens are one of the easiest ways to go wide with. So these are our like best token creators. Evangel of Heliod, 6 mana 1/3. And then when it enters the battlefield, put a number of 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield equal to your devotion to white. We have tons and tons of white mana symbols in this deck. We are mono white, so at the very least, this guy will be like, let's say about like maybe 4 max, who knows. You know, like you still get like a decent amount of creatures from this dude, because even at like if you have 0 white permanents on the board, you still get at least 2 from him. So it's not that bad, but it's definitely not the greatest. But we have Oketcher's Monument, which at one point I'm pretty sure was a standard staple card. 3 mana, white creatures spells you control or you cast cost 1 less to cast. But like I would say about 99% of our creatures are 99% of our creatures are white. The only non-white creature I think is Solemn. So, and even then, you still get the secondary effect, which is whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. So this just makes it where you double up the amount of creatures that come in after you cast. So you cast one person, and then you get another guy, and it just spirals out of control really fast, especially since you get that discount for your creatures. So then you're just like pumping out a huge board state really fast with the Oketcher's Monument. Now this is probably a weird one if you've never seen this card before. This card's actually not that bad as though it would read. It's a 4 mana 2/1, or 1/2, my bad. So it's slightly better than Evangel of Heliod, mana cost wise. 4 mana 1/2, and then instead of a 6 mana 1/3. So, but it has Chroma, and basically what Chroma is, it is the first take on Devotion. It's just by a different name. So whenever it comes into play, put a number of 0/1 goats, white goats, and then into play for each white mana symbol in the mana cost of permanents you control. So it's basically the long-winded version of Devotion. But you're probably wondering, why is this card in the deck? And on the next slide, it will be more of an explanation of it. But this allows us to go really wide, even though they are 0/1s. They probably won't be 0/1s for long. And then we have a good old Leonin War Leader, 4 mana 4/4. Whenever it attacks, creates 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink that are tapped and attacking. So not only does this allow us to go wide, it allows us to get in more damage too, whenever this attacks. So we get in an additional 2 more points of damage if we attack with the Leonin War Leader. So it allows us to go wide really fast, gets in 2 more points of damage, and 2 points of more damage can be very important, especially if we have some of our other effects on the board, they might not be just 2 extra points of damage. So here we have our Lord effects. So these aren't all of them. These are just a few of them. I just wanted to kind of like point these out. So we have Benelish Marshal, which is, I believe, our cheapest creature Lord effect. So it's 3 mana, it's triple white, so goes in with the Devotion and Chroma. 3/3. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Very simple. And this is a 3/3, so it wouldn't be protected by Lena. But since it gives other creatures you control +1/+1, it does get protected by Lena, which is very cool. And it's one of the reasons why there's so many Lord effects in the deck, because they kind of help Lena get bigger, and you can protect the Lords if they are higher up. And also, we are a Go White aggro deck. Having a lot of Lords or Anthem effects is something that is definitely very important. Now we have Celestial Crusader, 4 mana, 2/2, flash, split second. What split second is means that as long as it's on the stack, people can't play spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. So basically, they can't ever respond to this once it's on the stack. So basically, it's a Lord / Anthem that will always be able to resolve. So it's really good there, and it's flying. Other white creatures you control get +1/+1. So it specifically says white creatures, and it does say other white creatures, not white creatures you control. So it does help out your opponents a little bit, maybe. Probably not, though. Not as much as it's helping you out, because you are getting a huge pump effect if you have a lot of white creatures on the board. You can just swarm your opponents. Even though they might have that extra +1/+1, it still might not be as backbreaking as you might think. Because there are a few other cards that do the same thing, but this is definitely good because it's attached to a creature, and like I said, it has split second, so it means that it's an uncounterable Lord. So now I wanted to delve into some of our non-creature ones. So we got Spear of Heliod, 3 mana, creatures you control get +1/+1. And that's the main reason why it's in the deck. It also has a side benefit of being able to pay 1 white, tap it, to destroy target creature that dealt damage to you this turn. So it can basically be a defensive card as well. So it can be removal for like a retaliation. You know, you're trying to sway people from attacking you because they don't want their stuff to be destroyed. As long as you leave out 3 mana, it shouldn't be too much of a problem to deter people from attacking you with Spear of Heliod, which is something that this deck likes to go in a lot, and it's a big problem to, leave yourself open. So Spear of Heliod is a fine way to protect yourself, but not really that great, because it only kills one thing, so, and then we got Angel of Jubilation, 1 triple white, it's a 3/3 flyer. Other non-black creatures you control get +1/+1. So it's essentially a better Celestial Crusader, because Celestial Crusader just has other white creatures. So and also gives it to other players as well, the buffs. So what the Angel of Jubilation does is it allows you to give let's say your artifact tokens or artifact creatures give an extra +1/+1. And it also has a secondary effect of players can't pay life or sacrifice creatures to cast or activate abilities, which is very brutal against most decks. So it's one of those things, is like black likes paying life to do stuff, or like sacrificing things to do other things. And this is a really good hater card for it, but the main reason you're playing it is its devotion to white is really high, being triple white, and it's a 3/3 flyer that pumps up your other cards. And like I said, these are just 4 of them. There's like several others, maybe like double what you see here, maybe a little bit more, because we really want to be able to get a Lord effect out as quick as possible. Here we have card advantage, and honestly, there's really not that much card advantage in white, so these two are essentially a must. Mentor of the Meek, 3 mana, 2/2. Whenever another creature of power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. We have a whole bunch of creatures that have power 2 or less. Our tokens that we make are usually 1/1s or 2/1s. So we're probably most of the time we're going to be drawing cards off of Mentor of the Meek. And this is one of the essentially white staple cards. If you can build around it, it is a very powerful card, considering that it's one of the few white cards that actually says draw a card with no downside. So it's just a really good card, and definitely gives you longevity too, because you are an aggro deck. You like to dump your hand really quick, and this kind of allows you to draw your cards back. Next up we have Bygone Bishop, 3 mana, 2/3 flying. Whenever you cast a creature spell with converted mana cost 3 or less, Investigate. Investigate is put a colorless clue artifact creature token on the battlefield with P2, sack this artifact, and draw a card. So it gives you, same thing as Mentor of the Meek, it gives you card advantage, but it doesn't give it to you right away. And you don't have to pay mana in order for you to get the thing that draws you a card. Now you do have to pay 2 mana to sack it to draw a card. But it gives you something like, oh, well, maybe I don't want to do anything on this turn, so I'll just pass the turn and then sack my clues to draw cards. It gives you kind of a chance to decide what you want to do on your turn. Whereas Mentor of the Meek forces you to pay 1 if you want to draw a card, whereas Bygone Bishop's like, I'll give you the clue, and you can choose to pay 2 whenever you want to draw the card, which is something that's important. And like I said, these are the only 2 real card advantage cards, like drawing cards in the deck. There's a few other things in the deck that would be considered card advantage, and that I think that are also very good in a white deck too. So here we got our utility creatures. So these are just a few of them. We have Fairgrounds Warden, which is 3 mana, 1/3. When it enters the battlefield, exile a target creature an opponent controls until Fairgrounds Warden leaves the battlefield. So it's essentially a O-ring for creatures on a creature. And it's fine. We really want to have creatures for Lena. We want to have non-token creatures for Lena. So playing Fairgrounds Warden isn't a bad idea, and it's a good card. So I think that it's very good to have utility creatures that can remove, like creatures that can remove things, or creatures that can do other stuff to really help kind of keep the board clear or get rid of problematic stuff. It's really important. Now we got Mother of Runes. 1 mana, 1/1, tap, target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So while we don't want to really protect Lena, we really don't care as much because we could just sack her in response. There are a few other cards in the deck, like Fairgrounds Warden. Let's say we took a Grave Titan, and we really don't want that to come back, so they try to remove Fairgrounds Warden, but instead we give it protection with Mother of Runes. And there's a few other cards in here that we would prefer to stay on the battlefield. So Mother of Runes really just allows us to protect those creatures. It's because we can't really stop someone from exiling something in response to the Lena activation. We can't really stop that. Like if they exile a creature, we're like, oh, well, you know, can't really do anything about that. But with Mother of Runes, we can protect that specific creature if that creature is something that we really need. And then we have Remorseful Cleric. 2 mana, 2/1, flying, sacrifice Remorseful Cleric, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. This is just a value card. This is a card, Reanimation is like very important, and this really helps us fight against that in a creature version of it. We could have like Tormod's Grip, or if we really had a lot of, if you had a lot of money, you could play Rest in Peace. But I wouldn't really play Rest in Peace in this deck, because there's a few cards that actually care about graveyard stuff. So, I mean, there's just not really that many good options for, like, on the cheap. This is a cheap, efficient creature, and cheap price, too. I think only about $2 as of right now. And it is a very key card in a lot of scenarios. You're going against a Sacrifice deck, or a Reanimator deck. Having a way to exile their graveyard at instant speed is actually very good. And having it in a creature form means that you can just attack and get in damage even if you don't have a target for someone's graveyard. So I think this is a very powerful card, and the only other version of this is an angel that's 4 mana. So it's not as great, and it only does it whenever it enters the battlefield, so you can't like reanimate it or anything like that after you just exile, or you just sacrificed it. Next up we have War Priest of Thune, 2 mana 2/2, when it enters the battlefield, destroy target enchantment. You may destroy target enchantment. So whenever this comes in, what's your biggest problem is stuff like Propaganda, Ghostly Prison, and Sphere of Safety. So having a creature that can just come down and nuke one of those things is really good, because you don't want to be paying like 5 or 6 for your one attacking creature, because we go super wide, and in a lot of cases our creatures aren't going to be super big unless we have a whole bunch of Lord effects. We're not going to be getting in much damage. We want to be able to kill people really, really fast, or fast for commander wise. And so War Priest of Thune allows us to kind of deal with those problematic enchantments, and even just getting rid of good enchantments as well is not that bad. It has a lot of potential to be a really good card or not so good card. It really depends on what you're hitting or what's on the battlefield, because there could be 0 enchantments on the battlefield and you're just kind of sad because you have this card that does nothing. It's just a bear. So War Priest of Thune I think is worth playing just because you can hit really key enchantments that are good against this deck, and I think it's just very good overall. Next up we have our reanimation package. So as I said with the Bygone Bishop, you have a lot of creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less. We also have a lot of permanents as well that are under 3 converted mana cost or less. So we have Sun Titan, 6 mana, 6/6 vigilance. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may turn target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That is so freaking powerful that you just don't realize how powerful Sun Titan is until you actually play with it. And it is something that is just ridiculous, because if we go back to our Remorseful Cleric, we can sack it to exile someone's graveyard, and then we can get it back with Sun Titan, and then do it again, and then do it again, and keep someone locked out of the game of doing anything with their graveyard, which is something that is very powerful. There's also some other there's also some really good cards to actually get back with Sun Titan as well. Like there's Mind Stones and other stuff like that, like getting back your Mentor of Meek or the Bygone Bishop, because those are 3 converted mana cost, so you can get them back, so you can get your card advantage back, and it is really just a very key card. Now, the problem with this is that Lena can't protect this, and this is one of the few cards in the deck that Lena can't actually protect from removal spells. And that is a big problem, but hopefully we can end up getting him back if we really need to. But we have a backup one, which is Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle. 4 mana for 2/2 flying. Whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature card, converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's basically the same thing as Sun Titan, except it's whenever we cast a historic spell. And historics are legendaries, artifacts, and sagas. So we don't have any sagas in the deck, but we do have a few artifacts, and we do have a decent number of legendaries in the deck. So we have those in order for, like I said, these two are kind of key to getting our really good cards back, and they're 3 converted mana cost or less. So these are just very good value cards to have. And whenever we cast Lena, we can get something back as well. So even if Teshar, we don't have any legendaries or artifacts in our hand, we can still always cast Lena if she hasn't been, if she's not already on the battlefield, to get something back. So at the very least, we can do that. Next we have Karmic Guide, 5 mana, 2/2, flying, pro black, and Echo. Echo means that you have to pay it the Echo cost, or it becomes sacrificed. You only do it once it came out of the battlefield. In the beginning of your next end step, you have to pay the Echo, which you're not going to be paying Echo, most likely. And what it does is it returns target creature card from the graveyard from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's it's not as good as Sun Titan or Test Jar, but it can also get back Sun Titan or Test Jar, as opposed to the other two. Can't get back either. And they're also limited to being able to get back 3 converted mana cost thing. So what we could do with Karmic Guide is we could end up sacking Lena, putting it in the graveyard, and then play Karmic Guide, then get Lena back so that we avoid having to pay the extra 2 mana, or any mana for her, actually. You know, and that's something that's very good, because it gives you basically another Lena for free, which is good. And it's alright. It's not a card that we really need to kind of stay around. That's kind of the thing. It's basically a 5 mana reanimated spell, and then it dies. But it's also a good blocker. You know, it's flying, it has pro black, and they guarantee you if you're not going to pay the 5 for the Echo, you're probably literally just going to block with it if someone attacks you. So it's basically a win-win card. And we also have Marshal's Anthem. 4 mana as multi-kicker, so you can pay an additional 2 any number of times as you cast the spell. So you can pay 2, and then 2 again, and then 2 again, and you keep basically getting another copy of what the effect does. So it's also an Anthem. So creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever it enters the battlefield, return up to X target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of times you kicked Marshal's Anthem. So it is a mass reanimation spell, and being able to reanimate anything from your graveyard can be just amazing, because it gives us cards that can actually help us rebuild our board if it's been wiped, and it is just very good card just to play, because if you're in a late game scenario and you really need to get some cards back, you could just pay all of your mana and maybe kick it like maybe 3, 4, 5 times, and you're getting back 5 creatures. And this thing also is an Anthem, so it does stuff as well as, you know, being a huge reanimation spell possibly. And it's something that is just very good, especially in an aggro style deck. This is an amazing card. Next up, we have cards that are actually really powerful with Lena. There is another card, but I've mentioned it so many times, I don't feel like talking about it anymore. Cathar's Crusade. 5 mana. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So if you say you have 4 creatures on the board and you cast Lena, Lena will trigger Cathar's Crusade. Also, her enter the battlefield effect will trigger as well. So she'll pump up the 4 creatures and herself. Because she enters the battlefield, it triggers. 5 total creatures get the counters, and whenever she comes into play, puts the tokens down, those tokens pump every creature on the board, or on your side of the board. And it is just amazing how much power you can pump out with Lena, because you can just get 16 counters total on your creatures, and it could be really insane. Even just with like the goats, even the mere 0/1 goats, if you have a Chroma or Devotion of, let's say, 5, you're getting 5 goats, and they're going to be 5/6 goats, and that's pretty powerful. And it's definitely not something to laugh about whenever someone plays Springgut Shepherd with the Cathar's Crusade in play, because that basically means that you pretty much just lost. And that is something that is very, very good. Cathar's Crusade is one of the best white cards ever printed for Commander, and especially for like a go-wide token style deck. And it is this amazing card. Also have Advocist, 3 mana, 1/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player may choose to put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature he or she controls. If a player does, creatures that player control can't attack you or target you control. So basically what we would use Orzhov Advocist for is to pump up Lena, so that she can protect more and more creatures, like Sun Titan, for example. And it's definitely something that is also a very good political card, because it basically means that someone can make their creature big, but they can't attack you. And so they want to attack you, because you're the aggro deck. You're the one that's actually progressing the game, and people want to be able to play the game for as long as possible. And basically it would mean if nobody gets counters on their stuff, it means that you just got 2 free counters on your commander, and they don't even really get anything from it. They could also just put the counters on it as well and just not attack you. And it's a very good card, and I love this card. It's one of my more favorite white cards from the Commander products, and it's very fun. Now this one, we actually do play one board wipe in the deck, and it is Marshall's Coup. And what Marshall's Coup is a double white X card, and what it does is it puts X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens into play. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So it would destroy all other creatures except for the soldiers. So if you played X10, you'd keep your 10 soldiers and destroy everything else. Now, with Lena, what you can do is you can sacrifice her, give your creatures indestructible, and then have a one-sided board wipe with Marshall's Coup, while also getting more creatures. This card is immensely powerful with Lena, and I think is an ultra staple in her deck, because it gives you a board wipe that has no downside for you. It's literally 0 downside to play this card, and I think it's just a great card. And most of the time I would recommend this anyway, especially if you're a token deck and you're like really far behind and you really need tokens to do anything. Marshall's Coup is a good board wipe for that. There's also a few other cards that are also very good. And like I said, there is one more, but it's something that one of its effects isn't really that great, but it does give her +2/+2, which can also be very relevant. So she can protect stuff under 5, which is something that's very relevant. Here we go, and here's our win conditions. Jazal Goldmane, which we highlighted in Najila. 4 mana 4/4 for strike. You pay 5/3 white. Attacking creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. This is in this deck, and basically an ultra mega overrun. You activate this ability with all of those attacking creatures. You just attack. Let's say you have like 10 creatures. All your creatures will get +10/+10 if they're all attacking, and that is just gross. That is like killing everybody at the table type power, and that is Jazal Goldmane is really good, really powerful, and definitely is included in a lot of token go white decks, or just go white aggro decks, period. Because even then, he's still a 4 mana 4/4 with first strike, so he's very good on period. Stat wise, he's very good, and then tagging on that extra effect is basically game over for everybody unless they kill him. And this is one of the cards we would protect with Mother of Runes, and unfortunately Lena can't protect this one unless we have one of our ways to pump Lena up. So that's kind of the biggest problem there. Mirror Entity, 3 mana 1/1 changeling. It says every creature type. I don't think that really matters in this deck all that much. Pay X, creatures you control become XX and gain all creature types until end of turn. So another card that doesn't really work well with Lena, because if they're all the same power, she can't do anything to really help them. But if you're winning the game off of this card, I don't think it really matters. Mirror Entity is just a good finisher card in any white deck, and especially in tribal decks that don't really have very good win conditions. And Mirror Entity is just a good card to have. He's been in like several of my deck techs, and I love this card, and it's surprisingly pretty cheap for what it is, you know, being one of the best white finisher cards. So definitely would pick it up. We have Audric up next, and this is the first time Audric's been shown on this series, and Audric is very, very good. Audric, Master Tactician, 4 mana, 3/4, first strike. Whenever Audric, Master Tactician, and at least 3 other creatures attack, you choose which creatures block this combat and how those creatures block. This card is another game over card. You can either wrath someone's board by how you block, or you can just make them not block and just straight up kill them. This card is a very underrated card, and I think because obviously it requires 3 other creatures to attack. That's no problem in this deck. We will definitely have 3 creatures in play by the time we attack with Audric, or 3 creatures attacking with Audric. And I showcased it, I believe, in the 2nd ever episode of Commander Royale. Audric is a monster and should never be underestimated. He is a very powerful card and definitely worth include. Once again, Lena can't really protect it unless you have one of the cards that actually buffs her up. So I mean, it's one of those things. Is 3 of our win conditions die to removal if Lena isn't buffed up, which is kind of unfortunate. But you know, it's kind of how it is. Then we have True Conviction, 6 mana, 3 triple white. Creatures you control have double strike and lifelink. Yeah, there's really no need to explain this card too much. It gives all your creatures double strike. You have a whole bunch of Anthem and Lord effects, and yeah, people die once True Conviction comes out. And even if they don't die, you gain so much life, it doesn't even matter what they do to be able to fight you, because you have so much life, they have to kill you with commander damage. And this is just an amazing card, and definitely very good include. And that concludes the deck tech. And there are a few other cards in here that are worth mentioning. There is Draven Doomsayer, which is technically a +2/+2, but only if you have 5 or less life, which is very possible. But it also, what it does is it makes tokens, so it can allow you to get, another token creator out on the board. We have Militia Bugler, which is actually very good because it can get a lot of cards in this deck, and if it does die, we can get it back with Teshar, or we can get it back with our Sun Titan, and just get card advantage that way. I didn't want to put it in the card advantage tree because it isn't really that great, because if we get it only one time, it's not really amazing, and it's not really good. It maybe gets us 1 card, and that's a big maybe. We could have just none of the cards that we really need to be able to do what we want. This deck does play a lot of ramp, like discount ramp, because we do play high converted mana cost cards in here. Like we have Pearl Medallion, we have Cold Steel Heart, Mind Stone, stuff like that, in order for us to really be able to do anything to kind of dump our stuff out. We also have another way to go wide, which is Precinct Captain, which is very good, and something that I always play in my white aggro decks, and I think it's a very underrated card. Now, it is only a 2/2 first strike creature, but I mean, it's still not bad. It allows you to, in the early game, build up a board very quickly, so that's one reason why I like it. One of the cards that you could include in this deck is a Skull Clamp. I didn't include Skull Clamp personally, because we have so many ways to beef up our creatures, that I personally just don't like Skull Clamp in this style of deck. And that's just me personally. But you could basically choose whatever you want. You can put Skull Clamp in here whenever you don't have your Lord effects, or just not play as many as I do. But I think that to be able to really abuse what Lena does, you really need to have a go wide strategy with a bunch of lords, because you are making just 1/1 tokens, and they're not really that powerful. We also have Knight Captain of Eos, which is a fog, essentially, and we make a lot of soldier tokens, funnily enough. So we can have infinite fogs if we really want. And yeah, that pretty much ends the deck tech. The deck itself is $85 in paper and 16 ticks online. So it's a pretty cheap deck. There are a few cards in here that are a bit more expensive. I don't know off the top of my head which ones are which, but I believe that the non-budget version is about $145 in paper, so it's pretty much less than double of what this price is, and it only has like a few card changes, but they're definitely very good card changes. And if you have it, something like a Elish Norn would be amazing in this deck. But I didn't put it in because it's not really that budget friendly. So that's pretty much how that one goes. If you liked the deck, or if you liked the video, please leave a like and comment. And it would be awesome if you subscribe, because I will be doing one of these every single week. And I probably am going to go over the new commander options in the commander products. It's just going to be a video about the legendaries, the new legendaries from the set. And I'm probably going to wait until the full set is released so I can actually see all of them if there's any more new ones, because I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work. But there are a few that I really like, and there's some that I'm not really a big fan of, but we'll have to be going into that video. And it's something that I'll probably end up doing every set, probably, from now on. That way I could kind of give you an idea of who's going to be the one that I build and stuff like that. And I don't really have any plans as well for who's up next after this one. I'm probably going to end up delving back in time a bit for some legendaries. I may or may not do that, so stay tuned for that. And I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.